This is going to be before the episode starts, and we want your feedback of the listeners in some way, maybe on social media, or I think Apple Podcast is the only one that has reviews, I think. We just want to know if the 2 hours or 2 hours and a half is a good time for the podcast, or if it's too long.
Right.
Because if it's too long, we want to divide it into smaller chunks. That way you obtain or listen to the whole entire thing and get everything.
Right.
Because perhaps the 2 hours and a half is way too long for you to dedicate that time out of your life. And so we want you to also listen to what we're talking about in case you missed something and never got to it in the other episodes.
Right. And we don't want you to get into a feeling of, I guess, listening so much that you don't consciously consume a lot of the information that we're talking about. We want you to be able to consume the information in the time or in a feeling that you're able to understand that if I have this amount of time of my night or my day or my afternoon and I want to listen to this podcast, I'll be able to do that and be able to move on into a different activity or a different thing on my schedule. And that's one of the reasons why we like your feedback, because we want people to be able to enjoy listening to what we're saying, but also not feel constrained to a time, considering we live in a world where a lot of people are pretty busy, but this is also something that if you're interested in doing, we would like you to be able to enjoy it in the full way that you're not feeling like you need to spend the rest of your night or something like that.
Yeah, and I mean, you can reach out to our social medias. I guess yours is what where would you prefer?
I wouldn't mind. I think we shared it and posted it. Well, you posted it on Instagram and I shared it on my story. Feel free, anybody, to be able to reach out to me through my Instagram. And I apologize if I don't respond immediately, because I've gotten into the habit of turning off a lot of my notifications on all my social media, because I don't want to be immediately grabbing my phone when my phone buzzes. So if once I get to you and I'm able to have access and have some time, I'll respond to you fully. And if you have more questions, feel free to ask a lot of questions. And if you have questions towards me, you can ask me. If you have questions towards Mario and you can't have access to talking to him or asking directly.
Yeah, or if you have topics that you want us to cover or talk about, whether if it's our experiences or just in general,
right,
of our opinion on these certain topics,
right,
then feel free to just I guess message us on social media or comment on something, and especially leave a review if you enjoy the podcast on the Apple Podcast, and leave a review of not mainly critiquing if you don't feel like it, but maybe just saying what kind of things you would like us to talk about.
Right. Or if there's something that you had learned that from us that you didn't know that other people were experiencing in their life, feel free to be able to comment on that and share your knowledge, or share your your thoughts on what you had learned. And if there's something that we had mentioned throughout the podcast and you weren't able to get a good sense of what we're talking about or what we mean when we're talking about, feel free to be able to ask those questions, and we wouldn't mind going over those things.
Yeah, and I'm gonna, on the third episode, or actually on this episode, the fourth one, I'm gonna start including certain timestamps where I think on your application where you listen to it, you will be able to have sort of like the broad topic that we're talking about at a certain time. That way, if you just want to listen to a little portion of it, then you can just skip through it in case maybe something doesn't interest you as much. But yeah, we would like your feedback on anything that you have really in critiquing our podcast, because we want to make it better for you as listeners. That way you can enjoy it more. Mm-hmm. And then we can have sort of that gratitude of making something that, I don't know, there won't be fans, but right, just the listeners in general
exactly
enjoy having.
Yeah. And hopefully a lot of what we're talking about can spark conversations within your friend groups, your family, And I guess if you're involved in other groups in life, you can be able to share and talk about learning about certain things that you learn from our podcast and be able to give people exposure to certain things that maybe they didn't know about that you have learned from our podcast.
Yeah, and thank you for any feedback that you have, and enjoy this episode.
All right, so welcome to episode 4 of The American Dream. Once again, this is Daniel Bischoff, and I'm here with
Mario Lopez.
All right, and today is Saturday, July 18th.
Yep.
It's been a really hot one. Last week was really hot. This week was a little bit not so hot. I can't even say cool because it's.
I don't know. I haven't been out that much. I've been working a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe like around 50 hours a week.
Wow.
And that's mainly because there's not many people wanting to work at all.
Right.
So it's basically the first few guys that are in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And then they sort of do like a double shift.
Right.
And help out. And then maybe like a few people come in at night. But then there's people that call off or don't want to even come to work at all.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's... I mentioned it last week, but I'm not sure if it's for the virus that they're scared they're going to get it, or maybe they're just getting more money being on unemployment.
I mean, I guess both. You know, you're kind of taking the risk to expose yourself to going outside, and I mean, no one can really see what the virus looks like, so that is the risk. And like you said, some people are actually maybe taking some unemployment money, and so they feel they probably don't need to go to work because they're getting some of they're meeting their financial demands by being able to get unemployment.
Yeah, and I mean, at work they usually do like a review every 6 months.
Yeah,
it's basically they don't really talk to you, but they ask you like what things you might improve on, or if there's stuff that they themselves as managers can improve on or haven't been looking onto as much. And then they like talk about giving you a raise. But they're not doing that right now. They're not giving anyone raises. And then I know there was a guy that quit way before this stuff happened. And they reached out to him. And they said they were going to pay him $15 an hour.
Right.
And he didn't want to do that. So he just stayed at his job because, I mean, he already knows a lot of stuff in the restaurant. He's worked there before. And then to get a lower pay maybe that he was getting before leaving,
mm-hmm.
he didn't think it was really fair. So he denied the request.
Right.
But there's really no incentive for people who are getting more benefits right now to go out and work. Because, first of all, the risk of contracting the virus.
Mm-hmm.
And then you don't know like what people have been doing, going out for vacation, because there's people that don't care really about all of this.
Right.
They're acting as if it's something that's not that big of a deal.
Right.
And they walk in, they have to wear a mask to enter the building now. It wasn't that case before. But even with that, they have to eat, so they take off their mask. And then they interact with the waiters. And then at some point, the waiters, they can't like breathe with the mask all day. So they lower it, or if they're going to eat something real quick,
right,
then they take off the mask. So people can get the virus from that way. So it's not 100% guaranteed that you're going to be safe all the time. So I feel like all these essential workplaces or places in general that are open, they should really sort of compensate those who are out there. Because I understand that there's people who get really scared and they don't want to go out at all.
Right.
But I also know that there's lazy people and they're just using that as an excuse to not actually work. There needs to be some kind of compensation, I think, for those that are actually out there.
Right.
Earlier, like 2 weeks ago, I guess we had like a meeting and they were thankful of the people who are putting extra hours in, working like days that they usually wouldn't work, and then actually coming into work. But it's all nice and stuff to get recognized for that,
right,
but it's not really enough,
right,
because we are actually putting ourselves in danger
right,
of getting sick and then coming back home and getting other people sick.
Right.
And if I get sick, I'll have to quarantine, and then I won't have income coming.
Right. It's very
if you aren't able to obtain benefits
right.
for unemployment and stuff.
It's a very tricky situation because we both work in an environment where we provide services, and people that are coming in, we don't really have any history of them or any history of what kind of activity they've been engaging in the last couple of weeks. Maybe some of these people that are coming to the restaurant are coming from vacation somewhere in a part of the country where maybe the numbers were looking pretty high, and now they're, I guess, back home, and maybe they didn't quarantine because there aren't people at the airport just like asking you or telling you that when you go home you should quarantine. You know what I mean? People, I guess, are taking upon that responsibility personally, and if they're taking this virus seriously and they're coming home from somewhere where maybe the numbers look pretty high, then they'll decide to quarantine themselves. So yeah, it's been kind of interesting because you don't really know who has it, and then once you do find out, there's just like immediate action is to get quarantined, and that immediate action can disrupt your work schedule and your work life, and can in effect kind of affect your income as well.
Yeah, I don't think there's been much communication on what is the right thing or what procedures you should take to sort of combat the virus in some way or to prevent it from being spread out. I know they have the masks, and then there's people not wanting to wear masks,
right,
complaining that they can't breathe and stuff like that. And I've seen on social media that people are more, I guess, hardworking conditions where they have to wear a mask, and then they're not complaining, and then other people who have to wear it maybe for just to go outside,
right,
and then are complaining. But they are annoying, and we've talked about it. You don't like wearing the masks at all.
Yeah.
I definitely don't like wearing it, and I feel like it's suffocating while working in the kitchen,
right,
because of the heat and stuff. And I'm constantly sweating, and where I usually don't sweat, and it's relatively a colder area from the kitchen where I work.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't even imagine how those other people that are
right.
in like constant heat in their face,
working
then,
with flames,
yeah, and then it's busy and they're not drinking enough fluids, so there's other health concerns there, I think.
Right.
Some person shared something about, I guess, an Olympian
mm-hmm.
or something, or a runner,
okay,
that I guess had a asthma or some kind of condition, breathing problem,
right,
so they had to wear a mask because I guess stuff was getting into their system while they were running.
right.
So it's a competition, and throughout the competition he wore that mask. So that person that shared it was saying, or on the image it had like a caption where it says, if this person is able to wear this mask, then you guys shouldn't really complain. It makes sense what they're sharing,
mm-hmm.
but also I think they are wearing a different kind of mask,
right,
and it has some weird things on here, and I've seen them on Amazon or
right.
something similar, where they're masks but for running,
right, for performance. They're not for everyday living activities.
Yeah, and not everyone is getting those masks, or not everyone has that mask,
right?
So you can't really relate it or compare it.
Yeah,
there are people who have breathing problems and maybe don't like it, or as you in general, it's sort of a thing that is a hindrance maybe to you,
mm-hmm.
or it's really uncomfortable. But I know there's people saying out there that people really can't control their lives and they're free to do whatever they think. But I think out of respect, you should wear a mask when you're out in public.
Yeah.
If you're outside, maybe walking on your own,
mm-hmm.
or with your family that you already know that are taking precautions,
right,
then it's fine. You shouldn't really wear a mask. Or if you're out running, you're not really interacting with people, or you're at a distance, then maybe you shouldn't really need to wear a mask.
Right.
But if you're going out to the store where there's a lot of people, just out of respect for all the others, it's not because we want to take your freedom away.
Right.
we just want everyone to be safe and make sure that we can fight this virus.
Right. It's more of a selfless act in order to have keep people feeling safe. So today I was thinking maybe we could dive a little bit into and talk a little bit about our lives. Considering we kind of like split up right after high school and I went to college, so I can talk a little bit about my experience going to college and living on campus for 2 years, and then deciding that I wanted to live at home and then start going to school from home for the last 2 years. I would say I'm glad I was able to get the opportunity to go to school, and I know you had to go through your own struggles in order to figure out how to actually start going to school and stuff like that. But I wanted to talk about, I guess, living on campus and learning how to.
If you want to maybe step back, maybe
Right.
a few, like a little bit before that.
Right.
So
I
as
guess
you
the
were
process.
applying,
The process. Yeah, I guess we both had to go through a different mindset and different approach to school right after high school. But I guess exactly at the end of high school, when we're all thinking about where we're going to school, there were 3 schools that were in mind. So we both had the opportunity to go to Kenyon College and go through a program there in the summer. And so I kind of enjoyed being in that kind of environment, and I liked the kind of distance it was away from home. And so it was kind of like a great opportunity. And if they had actually given me enough money to go to school, I would actually pick to go there. Mainly because I don't mind the fact that like it was kind of like away in a small place. And then the other 2 schools would have been Otterbein and then I guess Ohio State, pretty much because I wasn't really sure anywhere else that kind of was interesting, or I didn't really want to go that far away, to be honest. So Otterbein kind of came to me mainly because I had talked to Mrs. Hess, who coached us in high school, tennis, and in class for math. She kind of just like said that name, and she talked about how close it is, and so I ended up checking that place out and checking out the tennis team. And so I wouldn't say that I was excited to go to college or not. I think that I thought it was just like another chapter in my life where I get to go spend another 4 years having different experiences and growing. So I didn't think that if I didn't go to college, I would have been a failure. I think that I would have found an opportunity to be even to find something that I can enjoy and spend a lot of time doing and be really good at it. So I ended up going to Otterbein in the fall of 2015, and I was living in one of the residential halls pretty close to the stadium, and so which was kind of nice because I had access to the athletic facility, and then it was kind of tucked away from all the other residential halls, so it was a little bit further away from even the academic buildings, which I kind of liked. I feel like I can like walk to class, which is a little bit further away on the other side of campus, which is for some people it could be like a 20-minute walk, but for me it's like a 10-minute walk. So it felt a little bit different, but I really
why was it 10 minutes and not 20?
Because everything is so close, like everything everywhere you go that you need to go
I thought
to.
you meant for other students that were in the same school.
No, I would
Maybe
say
it was
like
20
for
minutes.
other students that go to different universities,
Oh, okay.
a walk from their residential hall to, I guess if you live like at Ohio State, a walk.
You have to take the bus.
Yeah, you take a bus or you take the bike or you ride a bike or something like that. Or, but for me, it was just like it just wasn't like a long walk, but it still kind of felt like I was kind of like having my own place and I can go to class and then it's like that far away and stuff like that. But I didn't have any fears going into college about education per se, mainly because I really just developed a sense of confidence in myself in understanding that this is an institution, and I just thought basically that a lot of people have probably gone through school or college, and a lot of people have graduated. Some people might have not, but I think that more people graduate than don't. And so I was like, I think with that mindset, I don't feel like I was going to fail or I wasn't going to be able to make it. So everything was really working out well, like every year pretty much. Classes were really interesting, so I majored in psychology. And then I was thinking about minoring in French and Francophone studies, but then I ended up not taking it seriously because I wasn't sure where I could apply that in the future.
So before you went into, or before you enrolled or stuff like that, did you already have in mind the psychology major, or
yes,
did you change that?
I never really changed. I really just simply went on the website and I just looked at all the majors they had on the website from A to Z, and I kind of narrowed it down by eliminating certain fields that I wasn't really interested in, or certain departments. And then I think I also went through an exercise where you kind of just figure out certain things that you're interested in online. And so with that, I kind of narrowed down that I wanted to do something in the science, but I didn't want to be something heavily based science or heavily based math. And I wasn't really doing so well in the arts, so that wasn't something that I was going to go into. So I pretty much just went through a lot of the majors and decided to pick psychology from eliminating a lot of options pretty much.
Oh, okay.
And I also went on their website and read like their mission statement, or read about the department and what their values are about, and what they're going to be teaching you and what they hope to develop you as a person into when you graduate. And I really read some of the stuff there, and I believed it and enjoyed and realized that like there's going to be something that I'm going to learn that's going to impact my life forever, which I actually do believe, because I've been using a lot of what I've learned from psychology to control and be better as a person.
Cool. So that was mainly your thoughts coming into college.
Right.
Was there stuff maybe that you were expecting and didn't happen, or stuff like that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I had mentioned that I didn't really struggle that much through going through college, maybe because I was able to develop a certain pattern of routine where if I'm able to do certain things at certain times, which is pretty much like time management, but I understood how much of an effort I can put into either studying or learning something. And then through psychology, I was able to learn how to develop a sense of interest in something that also further helps you feel like you're going to enjoy what you're learning. So for the most part, school was great. I was doing pretty well in a lot of my classes. I think one thing that I was going in kind of expecting to either add to my life was I didn't really date in high school. And so when I got to college, I was like, maybe this could be an opportunity to be able to start dating and be experiencing dating. Because for a lot in high school, I spent a lot of time on just being academic. You know what I mean? I doing school was not hard. I think that I really enjoyed school. I think the one thing that was kind of difficult sometimes was playing tennis. And maybe when we advanced a little bit more into certain tournaments, that's when I really felt like, all right, this is like a challenge. Well, as far as like academic wise, I didn't really feel like I couldn't be able to do it, mainly because I knew how to approach teachers and professors in a way that if I was struggling, they could help me and I could ask the questions that I really needed and get the support that I actually needed. But no, I think for sure dating was something that was a little bit difficult to understand. I think about it now. It's probably because I didn't really date in high school, so I had no clue what to do when I got to college about how to go about even like asking somebody out on a date and stuff like that. So in all seriousness, that's one thing that honestly haven't really figured out how to do. I don't think it's because part of it, I think, is because I've been so interested in more in just living life, and I think there's more to life than just like dating for me. Mainly because I've spent so much of my time getting to know myself a lot and then getting to experience life, learning things. I think for sure I enjoy learning certain things. Like I could just pull up Safari on my phone. Safari is a browser, and I just can look up something interesting and then just spend time reading it. I don't really mind being alone per se, because I think that's an opportunity for me to just explore new things. Okay. So Um, it didn't really. I mean, I ended up dating for a little bit in college, but that was also kind of really difficult to like figure out because I was still learning um, how to understand communicating and spending time with someone and what it means to spend time with someone. And I was also trying to learn they're um, how they affect me. If they're like
Mm.
somebody that kind of like pushed me to be better, or if I became kind of like distant from the world or got too attached and stuff like that. They're all things that I really didn't understand that could happen, and so I ended up learning a lot from it.
Um, were you ever using sort of things you were learning in your classes of psychology, incorporate it to a relationship?
Yes, for sure. I think I had learned more through psychology about like how people can think about themselves in certain ways. How, in a sense, really just how people behave in certain ways, and maybe they communicate what they're feeling well, in the truthful way, or sometimes they find ways unintentionally or intentionally to say certain things that they don't really mean to say. And I think as far as like in the dating part, I learned more about like how to be very positive, and how to communicate with someone, and how to communicate mainly in a way that if there was any kind of conflict, that I'll be able to like address the conflict a little bit with maturity, and learn that I can communicate with this person in this way, even though we're having an issue, and we're able to like figure something out and come up with a solution. I think that's something that psychology taught me to do, but also um, I really learned a lot about just how um, like learning about like how you can form biases about people. So I really just tried to have an open mind. I didn't really want to make any assumptions of the person I was going to date, based off like where they're from, or who they hang out with, or what kind of music they listen to. I thought that I should approach dating in a way that like this is somebody that I really didn't know that much, even though maybe I've heard about something about them. But I thought it would be best to be able to know them personally versus like what other people have said about that person before I've met that person.
In your first year of college, were you mainly focused on dating?
No, I wasn't.
Or not mainly focused,
Right.
but it was sort of like a side goal or something like that
Yes.
to get into.
I think that, I mean, for a lot of, I don't know, I wouldn't say I'm speaking for every guy, but I think that there are a lot of people that are going to college that either if they're dating and either stop dating that person because they've moved on to college, or people go and they're like, I didn't really have a good time as far as like getting an opportunity to date in high school. So this is like a bigger opportunity because there are even more people and even diverse group, and you'd be able to like find somebody that's interesting. You know what I mean? So it wasn't really like necessarily a goal, but I think that coming to college where a lot of people are leaving their family and they're coming to a place where sometimes certain people are coming from a school where they have a friend that's coming to the same college as they are, so then they have a mutual friend. Or sometimes people just don't have any of their friends going to the same college they're going to, so then they feel like they're going to a completely new place where there are completely new faces. And so I mean, it's well, we're human, so we're all, I guess, have certain desires. I think people sometimes find their moment to either pursue like dating and stuff like that. I think that a lot of, I mean, I had seen a lot of people in the first, surprisingly, the first couple of weeks already started dating in like freshman year. And then like sometimes I'll see people that are dating and they were not dating. And so that was like going on a lot. Uh, maybe not too much in the friend group that I hung out with. So I think
Your
that kind
what?
of the friend
Oh,
group that I hung out
okay.
with. So I think that probably also affected how I kind of like approached it, because there were times where we were guys, so we just like enjoyed spending time with each other. And surprisingly, there was only one girl who would always hang out with us, but she always kind of not preferred, but she always just like hung out with us all the time. And so she became like a bro, even though she's like a girl. And it's I think that even thinking about that, you don't really see a lot of that in high school. I think that especially in high school, like guys just tend to stay with guys, and then girls tend to stay with girls.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was kind of interesting to learn that there could be a girl who's just like prefers to hang out with guys more because she just maybe she grew up with a lot of brothers, or she just prefers to just like hang out with guys because maybe there isn't no drama or anything like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So you did eventually get into a relationship, right?
Yeah, I
was
did.
that early on into college, or was
So
it
that was
later on?
that was sophomore year.
Okay, so
And so that was, I guess, honestly, I would say my first actual relationship. And there was a lot of things I had learned. I had learned that, it's interesting because I'm a totally different person and I hang out with certain people. And then you didn't realize that like this other person also hangs out with certain different people, and they all like really get along and they like certain things together. And I and my friends like certain things together. And it's interesting because sometimes I made plans where like my friends will hang out with her friends, and so we weren't sure if like where we're going to, what kind of activity we're going to do, everybody would enjoy it because we all kind of just were different and we just did different things. But I would say I learned a lot from that experience, however long it was, mainly because I think that I didn't really experience any of that at all in high school. And I've always thought that whenever I experience anything that I've never experienced before, I should always take it as a lesson. And I still really, I think that I've learned to maybe approach dating in a little bit different way, and be able to like communicate intentionally, and be able to start creating opportunities to be vulnerable with the person I'm dating. Maybe get to know them a little bit more and give them a sense of like feeling like they can trust me a little bit sooner. Because I think that's kind of important. People go through a lot of experiences before they go through dating. And so there are certain things that maybe they don't want to talk about because they fear that maybe if they share it with you, that that you might leave them. But I don't think that's the case. I've always felt like if you're in a relationship, that whatever struggles your partner is going through, not necessarily like becomes your struggle too, but you should, as a partner, if you have the ability to help your partner feel better or get better from it. You know what I mean?
yeah. And if you're in a relationship, if you're scared to share something, it's always good to have someone that won't
Right.
judge.
That
I
one
know
judge.
that's the perception, maybe, if you don't want to share.
Right.
But if you're with someone that actually loves you and stuff like that, then they won't really judge you.
Right.
They'll
I
try
think
and understand,
yeah.
or try and help you with the issues that you're dealing with.
Right. And I think part of it is, I think even for our generation, it's really difficult to trust someone because we consume a lot of media where, even in movies and in comedy and stuff like that, there's always multiple examples of like people being in like a very perfect relationship, and then like somebody comes and ruins the relationship, and then it's like becomes so normalized in what we see. And also a lot of people are really gravitated to celebrity life, and so they're maybe like their favorite celebrity is always going through experiences where they're like dating someone and then breaking up with someone and then dating someone and breaking up with someone. And I think that a lot of people either like draw their approach to relationship from what they see from other celebrities and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think so.
And to be honest, I think it's really, people should start looking more into like understanding what it is, understanding what celebrities kind of go through, because some of these celebrities just really just go through these experiences with these other celebrities because they want to create some kind of like image and get rich, or create some kind of like propaganda or something like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of relationships like that, but also it's kind of like forced on, I think, because you're at such a high status where you really don't have much options to have a relationship with.
Right.
You do have options, but you mainly focus on other celebrities.
Right.
So other people that are almost at your level.
Right.
Because if you maybe go out with someone that's a complete stranger, you don't know if they only like you because you're a celebrity.
Right.
And that's the only reason they
that's the
want
only
to be
reason,
with
right?
you. or other reasons such as money and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I think celebrities tend to date within each other,
Mm-hmm.
because they're all in the headlights or bright lights.
Right.
So everyone has their eyes on them.
Mm-hmm.
But that also is a negative, because all these reporters or paparazzis making news articles that start drama and stuff like that. So even if you have complete trust in someone,
Mm-hmm.
if they're out doing something or they insinuate something, then that builds a thought in your head.
Right.
So you question whether this person actually is loyal or not.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where some of that negative thing will come. But it's all with everything, and with any relationship, there's always going to be those positives and negatives.
Right.
But I think it's extremely difficult if you're a celebrity to be in a relationship,
Right.
because everyone is seeing it and it's
Yeah.
public to everyone. It's not a privacy thing, which it's meant to be. Just between you and that person
Right.
that you're with.
There are a lot of people seeking to consume what your lifestyle is like, or be able to like see what it is on a daily basis.
Yeah, and because you're a celebrity, I think people or fans or other people that are sort of in your field of view of popularity, or that a celebrity because of certain things, they sort of expect you to share everything and know everything about you.
Right.
But in reality, people that are at that level,
Mm-hmm.
they want some sort of privacy.
For sure.
They don't want to share everything. So I think there's a rapper, or I don't know if he's a rapper or not, Hispanic, Bad Bunny.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if
Yeah,
you've heard of him.
I listen to Bad Bunny like every day.
Yeah, so recently they were, I guess he revealed his girlfriend,
Mm-hmm.
but over like the past 3 years, if people or reporters asked him about if he's in a relationship or planning on being, he just says no and stuff like that.
Right.
And even though he didn't reveal his girlfriend at that time, but they were asking him like what he thought about that sort of type of situation, and he said that it's something between me and her,
Right.
and stuff like that, where I don't want these people or my family to be recognized or be affected by my popularity
Right.
and the things I do.
Right.
I want them, if they go out, to be comfortable in the world,
Right.
and not be afraid if someone's gonna come and recognize them and try to do something, even if it's a good thing, as just say hi and stuff. But they're not wanting that attention,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't want to give them that attention if they
Or put
they
them in
don't
a
want-
situation where they're people are chasing them down to take pictures of them. You know?
Yeah, and just to, I guess, since you're related to them, you think that they're gonna try and get you a picture or something like that.
Right.
So he didn't want to share that he had a girlfriend for 3 years.
Wow.
So until recently, where he actually, I think he was in an NBA game,
Mm-hmm.
and they saw him and a girl, and then they were kissing at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So then these people started putting things together and saying that it was his girlfriend. So then he eventually came out
And said that is
but
But isn't that strange that like people have to feel people are so interested in your life, and I guess they can't separate your personal life from your professional career. So somebody like Bad Bunny, who makes music, people can't just consume his music to enjoy it, but they also want to know who he's dating, and
they
who
want to
he's
do
dated
everything.
before, right? Who he's dated before, who's dating now, who's associated with him. I think that for everybody else that lives and has a job, I don't think they want people to be fully questioning what they're doing with their life.
No, and a lot of people are like that. They want to do stuff or know stuff of people,
Right.
but they don't want the
They
same
don't-
thing. They
right.
wouldn't want the same thing to happen to them.
Right.
But it won't happen to them because they're just a regular person.
Exactly.
They're not like us famous for anything specifically,
Mm-hmm.
but at some point, I guess they want to have the life that they want
Mm-hmm.
be reflected on the people that are here.
Exactly.
And that can't happen and won't happen because they have their own life
Mm-hmm.
and they're going to live their own life. And
Right.
you have to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But going back to, we're going to go back to what we were talking about,
Right.
college.
Yeah.
So at some point during your, taking psychology classes, did you focus at some point about relationships between groups of people or?
One of my classes that I really enjoyed that I learned a lot about how society works. We had learned a lot about mainly the way that people in America were, I guess, minorities in America were used to build America. One of my classes talked a lot about talking about Asian Americans, African Americans, Mexican Americans, and other minorities that were pretty much part of the development of America in building railroads, building industrial buildings, and all of that stuff like that. And I think that's something that I really enjoy learning about because I feel like a lot of people just live in the country and don't know where anything comes from.
Yeah.
When I applied to Otterbein, every incoming freshman receives a book. And it's called a common book, and so the class would read that book. It would be like the class's book. I guess the class of 2019, because I was going in at 2015. The class of 2019, they receive a book where every person in the class is supposedly supposed to read it and then do an assignment on it. And so, I mean, there are people who honestly didn't read it, but I read the whole book. And this book it's called Hidden America.
Oh, okay.
And it talks about certain jobs in America that are very essential. Like there are truck drivers, there are migrant workers, and there are other examples, but those are probably the two of the biggest ones, mainly because we live in a country where the supply of food and the supply and demand of food is like a huge, I guess, establishment. Do you know what I mean? Like everywhere, even right now, it's even kind of crazy to see. For example, when I'm driving on the freeway, I see Amazon trucks all the time, everywhere, especially now, everywhere. But the reason why I mentioned that book is because that book really taught me more about how there are people in America that are working and people would say they don't have the right documentation to live here, but they have documentation to work here. But they're working jobs that are really essential to America in the sense that, for example, migrant workers who go to different farms and during different seasons and they pick out fruit or foods. These people are coming from countries in Latin America, and honestly, a lot of them coming from Mexico, where they're traveling to different states, different times of the year to be working on farms where they're getting paid very low wage, but they're also working long hours and in the field all the time. And I was incredibly touched by the book because it made me kind of humble myself and made me realize that there isn't much. I don't know much about what's going on here. And then when I've been here, America, I don't know much about how the system works. And that book really kind of revealed a lot to me about the people that are working every day and they're not receiving a lot of benefits that are keeping the shelves in our grocery stores full all the time by how hard they work. Yet they still receive a lot of, I would say, they don't receive enough support to make their lives a little bit better. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I've been basically aware of that without reading the book.
Right.
Because I know that a lot of Hispanics come over from South America or Mexico, and they basically, any job that they're getting here is like 100 times better than what they were working at there, pay wise. Even if for the average person that is living here, it seems really low. And like right now, it's really hard for certain groups of people to obtain jobs because they don't have the right paperwork. So they're sort of put in a position where they have to work certain jobs.
Right.
Jobs that are more open to having those types of workers. And they take it. I mean, they just grind it out.
Right.
And
it really
is a grind. You see it all the time. Mainly in California, where it's almost all the farm work. You see a lot of Hispanics. They're just picking, putting in in the machines and stuff like that. I mean, they're there in the morning, probably I don't know how late.
Right.
And they're constantly there every day. But those conditions are harsh. But at the end of the day, when they're getting money, even if it seems like it's not much, I feel like they're really proud of that.
Right.
And if you're talking about maybe like construction or landscaping, you see a lot of Hispanics.
Right.
They're all working there. They're getting paid in cash, and then they work harder, and then end up making their little own business and stuff like that, and then just sort of climb up. But they grind their ass off.
Right.
And it's basically, if a family member is working in like construction, then the people like cousins or uncles and stuff like that, they're all working in the same thing, and then just support each other and building their sort of financial status up together.
Right.
Even if they're not getting paid as well. I feel like that's
it's
not recognized as much.
Right.
By the people that are here. And I can't personally speak for those that are earning lower than as far as Hispanic wise.
Right.
I don't know if they're happy or if whenever they get paid, they feel satisfaction.
Or to what extent.
Yeah, right. Or to what extent it is. But what I feel like in general is, I don't want to generalize, but I feel like the average Hispanic that is earning maybe like $10 an hour, and that's a lot to them. Somehow they manage.
Right.
And find a way to work it out.
Right.
I mean, and not everyone is like that, but with us, I mean, we're not earning, my mom, dad, and uncles and stuff like that, they're not earning a lot.
Right.
And they've been working maybe like 10 to 20 years here. And they're not earning a lot compared to maybe what people want as the average pay.
Right.
And they're not probably earning that or just getting there. But us, I mean, we're living pretty good, I think.
Right. I think
it's not the best, but it's really good.
Right.
We're always having food on the table. And every time we get a good paycheck, it's always satisfying. Especially for me now, where I'm working, as I mentioned, almost like 50 hours a week because no one wants to work. So I have to put in hours.
Right.
And every time I see my paycheck, it just makes me want to work more. So I guess it's, I don't know if it's why, but Hispanics just work hard.
I know.
I think.
I and that's something that I think that a lot of people that live in America that don't know about that, and they consume information or biases or stereotypes from the media. They really don't get the real picture or a good idea of like the culture that they're seeing on TV. I think that reading that book really just like enlightened me about making sure I stay humble, but even more that there are other people living that are going through these experiences, getting paid not that much money, but they keep coming back every day and working hard. And it's really difficult to try and rationalize saying that these people are stealing jobs. And I think remember when we went to this was in high school when we went to Washington and we were hanging out. We went to visit Washington. We're hanging out in the hotel and we're watching the news. And
it was. I don't know what they were talking about exactly, but the topic was basically if Hispanics were taking the jobs of the Americans. And people were calling in to give their opinion and stuff like that. I think an old guy called in and was saying that I think he got fired or something, or he was going to lose his job because of this or something like that. I really don't remember, but basically he was just saying that Mexicans were taking the jobs from the American citizens.
Right. And that even that statement is very, I don't know how people can say that and then just feel like that's fine, because for every job that you want, you don't just get it. You know what I mean? You're put into a position to prove that you can be able to do this job. So if there are all these people that are actively seeking the opportunity to do a job like this, and then getting an opportunity, I don't think that's, in all honesty, that's not stealing, because you don't ever go to any place for a job interview and then it's like the most simplest thing and you automatically get the job. You know what I mean? You have to go through a process, and a lot of these people go through a very simple process, but also understanding the supply of demand of America. There are a lot of people in America that like consume a lot of food, and that's what the food industry is all about. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so a lot of people just eat, but they don't know where their food is coming from. They don't know what kind of process is going through, which people are involved. They kind of just go to the store and they see the item and they pick it out and they're out of there. And reading this book just made me realize more about appreciating people. I think that's something that people need to start learning more about, is to read more about other people and how they're involved in society, and appreciate how their efforts are making society better. Like now I feel like after reading that book, there are times where I went into the store and I was like, I'm going to grab these fruits, but I know where it's coming from. And I like the feeling that I know where it's coming from, and I know that because I'm buying this fruit, somebody can still keep a job. But I don't think it's enough for me. I think that they should be able to get their job and get some benefits, considering that if they weren't doing it, this fruit wouldn't be in the store right now, and that's something that I need.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that, and about everything basically you've been saying. But a lot of these people are really entertained or are made to look at certain topics basically while they're living. So they really don't shine the light on other things or aspects. I think it should always start in school, really, because it also pertains to how I was mentioning that in the last episode. I really don't like Mother's Day and stuff like that, specific days or months of stuff. So Black History Month, I don't like it.
Right.
It's Hispanic Heritage Month or whatever, I don't like that.
Right. I had read something about somebody that didn't like a black person. I can't remember if it was Morgan. Yeah, I think it was Morgan Freeman. But somebody was asking about how,
I think it was Morgan Freeman.
Yeah, somebody was asking him about how he felt about Black History Month, and he's like, I don't like it because there's only 1 month dedicated to black people, does that mean that all the other months that are not dedicated to black people are dedicated to white people? You know what I mean? So then,
yeah, I don't like that aspect. And especially in school. Mm-hmm. Throughout the school, you learn about, in history class, you learn about American history. Mm-hmm. It's all white history.
Yeah.
And then it's February, and then you start learning about black people.
Yeah.
And all you really learn about is the civil rights movement.
Yeah, you really do.
Every year.
Yeah. And then.
So, I don't like that aspect, because you're not really shining the light on America history.
Right.
Because as that book you're saying, Hidden America, these people, they have contributed to American history and are part of it.
Immensely.
Whether if it was good or bad, whether they suffered or didn't, it's all American history, and it should be covered throughout the year.
Right.
It shouldn't just be in this 1 month where if you don't end up covering even the civil rights movement
Right.
because of maybe weather or a teacher getting sick, once that month is over, you're not going to cover it.
Right.
And I don't like that. So they should change that to learn about the real American history. Start from school, I think.
Right.
And that's how you start shining the light on these people that have contributed throughout history
Mm-hmm.
and give them a chance to shine. And that way people, maybe they weren't tuned into that.
Mm-hmm.
And not everyone is going to be interested, of course, because everyone has their own interests. But maybe if someone that is interested in history might have not known that,
Mm-hmm.
they start building interest on it and then pursue that career or through college,
Mm-hmm.
and then maybe as a job of learning or teaching about that history.
Right.
And then even maybe on the news or on the TV or even like Hollywood, they should cover or make documentaries of people who have contributed throughout history,
Right.
or have TV shows where they say stuff you either know about or did you know this person created this,
Right.
stuff like that.
Right. I think, yeah, I that is very important. I think it's even important in a lot of areas where there in certain fields where maybe there are more white Americans that are like involved in that kind of field. I think that even like as we're talking about history and stuff like that, I didn't really get to learn much about certain African Americans that, well, when we did like African American history, we would touch on like music and stuff like that. And those are things were pretty interesting. But later on, I started learning more about like mathematicians and scientists and stuff like that, only because I actively went to go look for it. You know what I mean? It's not because some of my teachers went extensively into like talking about certain, I guess, African American heroes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this is where I have a problem with in high school,
Mm-hmm.
where a lot of people hated Mr. Mitchell.
Right.
And I think at one point, Mitchell and Begany had like an argument about something about presidential debate.
Right.
I think it was when it was Obama and Romney, Mitt Romney.
Mitt Romney, yeah.
Yeah. And they were, because Mitchell is a Republican.
Right.
So they were, I don't know if they were insinuating, but like he's kind of racist and stuff
Right.
like that. He's the only teacher, Black History Month. He's a math teacher.
Right.
Black History Month comes,
Mm-hmm.
he literally gives extra credit
Right.
if you look up African Americans who have contributed
Mm-hmm.
in history.
In history.
And basically almost mathematicians as
Right.
well.
Yeah. I remember doing that project.
Yeah. And he always encouraged people to do that.
Right.
And I don't think, I guess because a lot of students there were ignorant, really, or
Mhm.
really ignorant.
Right.
They don't realize this is a guy that you probably wouldn't expect
Right.
now, if you look back,
Mm-hmm.
that is pretty much hated
Right.
throughout the whole school.
Right.
He's trying to give you that sort of ability, or try to motivate you to learn about these people that haven't been
Been talked about.
talked about a
Mhm.
lot. And I really like that.
Mm-hmm.
I never did the project, but now looking back,
Right.
as we're having this conversation,
Right.
I think about it and I'm like, he's the only one during that. And he's not even part of doing like a history class.
Right.
He's wanting to shine a light on these African Americans,
Mhm.
even if it's just in that month. But
Mhm.
he's trying to do something about it.
Right.
But since you had to read that book the whole year?
No, well,
1
not-
year or through the 4 years?
It's not through the 4 years. Oh, it's a book that you read in the summer before school starts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
So,
before school starts, you read that book
yeah,
and then do assignment
yeah.
and
So
sort of turn it in.
yeah,
the first
it's
day. Right?
it's so and so just to explain to you, so we get the book, we read it before we come in, and then for every incoming class, there's a first year seminar class, which is a class you're assigned to because you're a first year and you're going to be interested in a certain field. So let's say because I was interested more in the science, I was put into a little bit more on this, I guess, the natural science area of like science. And so like I had classes with people who were interested in like sports management, and certain people were interested in nursing and health science and stuff like that. And so in that classroom, our professor would request that we turn in assignments there. And the assignment just pretty much just ask you what certain themes you learned through certain chapters. And I can't remember vividly, but it also asks you what you had learned, if there's things that you knew already, or if there are things that you had found out from reading the book. And I think even I really enjoyed the book because I found a lot more things out about like the way the country functions, and those jobs and people working long hours, driving across state lines, transporting a lot of products and stuff like that all across the country, and
Yeah,
all
like
type of
over.
and in all kinds of weather conditions. So I just wanted to mention that because I think that a lot of people that live in this country don't know about that. And so then honestly how they feel about, and they don't have an idea about what demographic of people are working in this field. And so just like to give people an idea of how the country's run and how to appreciate more other like cultures and other people that are involved in making our lives a little bit easier. You know what I mean? Like I enjoy eating a lot of fruit, and I would be really upset if I went to the store and there was no fruit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I could also understand that like there's no fruit maybe because somebody somewhere is not being treated right, and they're like, well, I don't want to keep working like this because this is inhumane. So I'm not going to be, I can understand that too, mainly because I've learned that there are people who this is somebody's job, and maybe if they're not being treated well, they have the right to be able to put themselves in a position where, not saying that like I'm going to starve and what they're doing is going to make me starve, but I also understand that like they're deciding not to go to work too, so they're probably going to starve. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, but not a lot of people or Hispanics, I don't think, complain a lot of the working conditions that they have. And I think it's because sometimes, not all of them, but I guess a majority of them, when they're coming in, they don't know English. Or maybe they know a little bit, but they don't have that confidence to sort of step up for themselves and demand certain benefits. They just come into work and
right, or they don't even know that they could put themselves in a position to make demands.
Yeah,
because they feel like what they're getting is even maybe more than like even like enough, in a sense like they don't need to ask for more. Right.
I want to talk about also, I know you weren't really artistic, and always sort of, you were self-conscious about not self-conscious, but you were aware of it, that you weren't really
right
had that ability to, or creative.
Right.
What was your experience, and when was it first starting when you were taking those art classes?
So senior year of college, once I was done with pretty much taking all of my psychology classes that I'm required to take for the certain credit amount of current hours, I had the flexibility of choosing to take other classes that could just fill up my schedule. So that's when I took the opportunity to take art. And mainly because I had learned through psychology that we work and use a certain more of our, if I am correct, the left part of our brain more, and we don't use a lot more of our right part of our brain. And I've always been interested in trying to learn more about myself and even learn more about how the mind works, and that's how I got into psychology. But I was basically using this opportunity to start developing skills and use more of the other part of my brain, and in return also really get out of my routine of waking up, studying, go to class, eating lunch, maybe having practice. I wanted to have something different. You know, I felt like going to my art class was different than going to any of my required classes. I can I get to class, and if I'm working on a painting, and I took painting, I took drawing, I also took ceramics. I took painting one, and then the following semester I took painting two. So within all those semesters in those classes, I really just enjoyed the fact that I was working on a certain piece, and when I get to the classroom, wherever I stopped, I get to see my progress. Because every day I'll work on my painting or my drawing for a couple of hours while we're in class, and usually I try to, and this was a good strategy, but my professor would say spend about maybe like 20 minutes increments, or 20-minute intervals working on it, and then take some time away so that you don't get kind of bored at seeing the same thing all the time. And so I was really trying to enjoy developing these skills, mainly because I've spent so much of my college time reading, writing papers, going to class every day, going through lectures. I wanted something a little bit different from what I was doing, and I actually enjoyed it a lot. I wish I would have done more, and I also wish I would have just like take more risk with my art, because I feel like because of the way that I approach certain things, I always want to do certain things in a certain way. And I really wanted to try and do art in a way that like it wasn't, not saying that I wouldn't follow the instructions of my art professor on what to do, but I think there is a beauty in art when you kind of deviate, or you're able to apply something a little bit different, or see something a little bit different in the way that you put color on your canvas, or the way you mix colors. Like, I didn't know how to mix colors. I thought it was a really interesting thing.
Okay.
I didn't know how to blend colors. I didn't even know, even in my drawing class, I didn't really know how to shade. I think that was something that I learned how to do. I didn't know how to do it. Mainly it was a time where I wanted to do something that I didn't know how to do really well. And I wanted to try doing it, mainly because I know that I wanted to discover how well I can do it. I want to discover it would be something enjoyable, if it's something that I can add to my personality, and spend more time doing it, because I kind of felt like I didn't really want to get into the routine where after I graduated, I'll be going to work all the time and wouldn't spend any time doing something that wasn't physically strenuous. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I enjoyed watching. Well, I wasn't really watching, but on Snapchat you would post like the thing you were working on.
Yeah.
And I looked at it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, I don't know if it was when you started, but I thought you were just doing it as like a free time hobby or something. But then I realized that it was a class, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoyed watching your progression, because I know you weren't really good at it.
Right.
And I mean, your first like painting, I think it was mainly painting that you shared, of sort of translating what you saw in front of you onto a canvas.
Yeah, it's called a life still.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So when you have your canvas and all your painting materials, but then you set up a station and you're pretty much recreating the image. And you, in our exercise, we had the flexibility. I guess not the flexibility, but we can. What I was trying to do was recreate those colors through the oils, and I think that process itself was kind of really interesting to learn, because the way that my eyes see colors of objects a little bit different than when I'm mixing colors, and it was interesting to see how I was trying to mix colors and get the color to look exactly like what I was seeing in real life. I think that was a fun process, to just really like either adding a certain oil, colored oil, and then making either the color warmer or cooler. That was like something that I had learned how to do, and I think all those things were what I really enjoyed about them. They're completely different from me staring at a screen or reading a couple articles and writing.
Okay.
I like the process.
Yeah, sort of a active thing, that you were active learning, basically.
Right.
You were basically doing an activity and learning the process, because maybe to a regular person it just looks like you're putting paint on it.
Yeah.
and maybe that was your idea, maybe
Right.
going in. But yeah, as I was saying, I saw your progression, and I could tell how you were getting better.
Right, right. I mean, and that's I guess one of the reasons why I was posting them. I don't really post a lot of things on my social media, on all my social media, but I this was something that I felt like I wouldn't mind just showing to people, and if they had some kind of feedback, I didn't really stop anyone from giving me feedback. I give people opportunity, and certain people would comment and ask me if I was actually doing painting, and I'd be like, yeah, and they're like, oh, that looks really good. And I wasn't doing it to receive any kind of gratification on the fact that like I'm good or I'm bad at it.
Yeah, you
I
weren't
think
wanting any feedback.
right.
You were just
I
trying to
didn't. I
document
wasn't wanting any feedback, but I would accept any feedback mainly because I understood how getting better at something is. You kind of you need some feedback. But no, I really enjoyed learning a lot about that stuff because it takes a different type of thought process or thinking to
it.
approach
Yeah.
mixing colors and understanding how shades work,
Mm.
understanding how smearing or moving your fingers in a certain way on the canvas can make a line that your paintbrush can make,
Oh,
or
okay.
a line or a shading with different materials on a drawing paper, and it can create certain values and stuff like that. All those things were really interesting for me to learn, and even more interesting because I didn't know how to do them. I really enjoyed learning them because they just became something that I was like working on. And I think I approached finishing college in that way because I didn't really want to be stressed out finishing college. And mainly because from the beginning, I put a lot of effort into making sure my grades were right from the beginning. Like all my classes, I was making sure I was staying above B's, and I was able to accomplish that. And so I didn't really per se have any time in college where my grades dipped like really low or low enough where it was like standing out.
Okay.
I didn't fail any classes. I didn't get any. I think probably my lowest grade in any of my classes I took in college were like a C. And so like I think I got pretty used to and understood how to go through a routine and go to class and study and understand how much effort I can put in. But I completely approached art in a way that like I didn't really know much, and I was more than willing to learn more every single day. And I really enjoyed going to class every single day, knowing that, okay, yesterday I stopped here. This is what it looks like. This is how much time I spent on it. Today I'm thinking about doing this. But maybe something I did yesterday, I didn't really like it. But now I have the opportunity to do something different with it. When maybe the paint hasn't dried all the way, I can still make any type of like editing and using the color on the brush immediately, and it's kind of like an enjoyable experience because you're working on something, and you have the opportunity to keep editing it in a way that you want to because it doesn't really fully dry, or some parts will dry a little bit sooner and stuff like that.
Since you graduated, have you delved back into painting or any artistic?
I haven't gone back, and I would like to, mainly because I understood how it affected me mentally when I was like finishing school. I felt like I was less stressed. I was enjoying school. I was able to just like have a relaxing time while like not thinking too much about like big assignments. You know what I mean? But no, I do have a couple like blank canvases in my room. I've been working a lot more than usual, so it's kind of been my priority has kind of shifted a little bit. And I spent like there's just like I work so much that I can't even put the time aside to start working on either painting or drawing. But maybe this is going to inspire me to even do it even more when I have the opportunity to do it.
Yeah.
Mainly because I'm still trying to get into a better habit of staying off the screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know Bob Ross?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
At some point, I don't know what year it was, but there's this, I don't know, have you heard of Twitch?
Isn't that the streaming
Yeah.
service?
It's a streaming website basically for gaming.
Okay.
But they've like put it out for just regular live streaming basically, so you can go out and stream and you can put it on there. At some point, they started putting up episodes of Bob Ross had a show. I forgot what's it called, but he would just paint.
Live.
Not live, but well, it can't be live because he's dead.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
But it was basically reruns. It was basically reruns of his TV show that he had.
Okay.
Where each episode he would paint like a landscaping
No way. I'm
painting.
gonna look it up.
And they're fucking beautiful, dude. I would just sit there and he had like so many thousands of views live.
Right.
Hundreds of thousands. You would just watch him paint. And then they made memes about it and stuff like that. Like when he would grab the brush and then hit it on the thing and it would go like.
Right. Okay.
and they were just making like, insinuating that he was checking out.
Right.
But as if he would use like a technique with like, I don't know what the tool would be. It was like a metal thing where he would just like, or grab like a big brush and sort of like pat it on the canvas.
Right.
And he would basically ruin the painting.
Yeah.
But then he would come and add these like little details, and it would just be all fixed. It was all fixed, and everyone watched it. I watched almost every episode.
Right, and that's what I find exciting about watching art, especially when it comes to painting.
And him specifically, because he had this sort of way of speaking where there was no way you could hate him. And the stuff he spoke about. He loved animals, loved the wildlife. He always had, not in every episode, but in certain episodes, like a squirrel or like something like that, he would have on the show, and he would just be there playing with it, like nothing.
Right. And
it was very pleasing.
That's good. I need to figure out see if I can have access to that and watch those videos.
Well, it's not. At that point, it was just on Twitch.
Okay.
And it was sort of, they were live streaming the reruns, and it was every day for a short period of time.
Okay.
And it got really famous.
Yeah.
And then, but it's on Netflix, I think.
Okay.
I don't know if they took it off, but you could probably find on YouTube just an episode. And I don't know if you want to try, maybe get some of the material he uses.
Right.
And then if you want, paint along with him, because that's mainly what the show is.
Okay.
He tells you the colors that you're using in this episode.
Okay.
The tools, and he tells you how he's doing it.
It's almost like you're in a painting class, but it's kind of active in the sense that like you're following what you're seeing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he has these like sort of sayings that he says. And I think it'll be really cool if you try that.
Right.
Just put up an episode or something on and try and recreate it. I know I've seen other people try and do it, and they're all awful. They're nothing like what he ends up making. Right. But it's really interesting.
That's good. No, for sure. I will check it out. And I'm interested to see what I can learn from it and be able to adopt certain techniques that he's using. And who knows, maybe I'll have even more time with all these numbers rising with the corona. Not sure what is going to happen to certain businesses. But I always feel like, especially when the pandemic hit and I stopped working, I honestly automatically started thinking about ways to be able to utilize this time. And I was also mindful of the fact that like there are people suffering at that same time. And it was difficult to try and be upset certain times, mainly because I know that there are actual people that were contracting the virus and getting sick out of it. And I might be upset because I can't work, but somebody's experiencing an even more difficult time of their life.
Yeah, in case something happens where we have to sort of close everything down again. I know California has done that, but I don't know if it's the right thing or maybe it is. We don't know. But while we were in quarantine, I didn't really use my time effectively. I just basically caught up on movies that I didn't watch or shows. I mean, I I really enjoy movies, and
Mm-hmm.
I would go to theaters a lot,
Right.
but they're closed. And I enjoy that experience because it's very different from just laying in bed and watching it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the popcorn is not the same. But yeah, that's basically what I did. But in case, which I really hope things don't close down again. But if it does, I plan on doing stuff that is more productive
Mm-hmm.
and not time wasting.
Right.
I did enjoy my time, but it wasn't really productive in working towards something that could probably help me in the future and stuff
Mhm.
like that. But I mean, since we were talking about art, I enjoy art, but there are times where I don't really feel inspired to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And these are little moments throughout the year where I feel like drawing something. And then, as I was mentioning, like Bob Ross,
Mm-hmm.
I picked up some acrylic paint,
Oh, okay.
and I wanted to paint my cats
Mm-hmm.
that I have, and put them onto a big, not big canvas, but it's like this little pad that I have here.
Right.
And I never ended up finishing it. From time to time, I add on,
Mm-hmm.
but hopefully I finish it sometime soon. But throughout like college, I had an opportunity to maybe take art class, but I had already had a credit
Mm-hmm.
that was with it,
Mhm.
so I was kind of forced to take art history,
Wow.
art history 1, and it's basically dates to like the first pieces of artwork
Mm-hmm.
throughout history
Right.
in general. And that class was pretty easy.
Mm-hmm.
It was really fascinating to learn about the sculptures and stuff like that people found in like the earliest, how people would use the animals' blood and paint
Wow.
in the caves.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so they would basically use, I guess, in a way of it was symbolic because they had hunted this animal.
Mm-hmm.
They had gained food from it, clothing,
Mm-hmm.
and then they would use the blood
Wow.
and sort of mark their territory. Not mark it as in this is ours, but sort of show what they had experienced. Sometimes they would depict them hunting the actual animal and then painting it using the blood. So it was really interesting. I didn't really agree with the teacher or professor on her views in life
Mm-hmm.
because she would always try to incorporate it. She was more of like, I guess, feminist,
Mm-hmm.
but sort of hating whites, kind of,
Mm-hmm.
even though she was white. But she always incorporated that stuff into how she taught.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really enjoy that, but I sort of went along with it and adjusted to it. And if I had to write a summary or a comparison between art pieces,
Mm-hmm.
I would write it towards how she would like it, and that would help me get it easy.
Great, yeah.
But yeah, it was interesting. I mean, I still have the book where it talks about these artworks, and I think we stopped sort of or the Roman era or somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I never took the second art where it continues on, but it was very interesting. Like at some point we learned about this sort of art style where you would basically have like a bearded person, white bearded person.
Right.
And it was basically because of this sort of emperor that was really loved and powerful.
Right.
So they wanted to depict that with everyone,
Wow.
basically. So people or emperors would have sculptures designed that way, where they would have like a beard, like the curly locks and stuff like that. And then at some point, the Roman Catholics grabbed that
You grab
and
that.
used it in a way to depict Jesus, because it would show him as this powerful being, sort of important figure because of the beard and
And then long.
the hair.
Yeah.
And then it would have like this sort of divine thing. and that's showed his importance at that time. One other thing that, I mean, I would have to recall stuff because I don't remember everything specifically right now, but at some point she mentioned this, where Roman Catholics, they burned this library when they conquered the city.
Right.
They burned the library where it had basically all the history.
Oh my gosh.
And it had a book of the only person that was at the crucifixion of Jesus.
What?
Like first-hand experience. And they burned it. They burned everything.
What?
All that history.
That would have, I mean...
Because they didn't want other people to know.
Right. That, I mean... that's where you're like, if people were able to intervene and we had access to whatever information or data was stored, that could have really like changed a lot, even right now, in people's beliefs or the understanding of or the belief of God and stuff like that. That is incredible.
Yeah.
Talk about your experience going to Columbus State, and maybe even talk a little bit more about what issues you experienced before you got into school and how you went about making sure you're able to cover your experiences if you wanted to, and the kind of classes that you took that you've maybe been able to apply to your life now.
Okay. So before or towards the end of high school, I started realizing that, and I mentioned it in the first episode, where I sort of got the idea that I wasn't going to go to college, even right away or at all. That was mainly because I knew of how my situation was with not having the right paperwork and being able to obtain scholarships or grants or loans. I applied for Ohio State, and then I was supposed to send the transcript in. And then I don't know who was the one that had to take care of it.
From Beechcroft?
Yeah.
High school?
Yeah. I don't know if it was the counselors or... what
Steve.
was that guy?
Steve?
No, not Steve. No. It was a black guy.
Teacher?
I think it was a No I Can guy.
Oh, Mr. Jeez. I can't remember.
I don't know. It was some guy. I don't know. I guess he was supposed to cover the fee.
Okay.
And it never got
the
covered.
Application fee?
Yeah, not for the transcript fee.
Oh, the transcript fee. Okay. Yeah.
So I had filled out the application and everything, and then I was supposed to send the transcript in, and then I guess it was supposed to be covered. I guess the first two were free or something like that. Right, the first two. But I know at least one of them was supposed to be free.
Right, so you're saying when you send your transcript, you get
charged.
You get charged as a fee to send it, and part of we had the opportunity to get some of them waived through I Know I Can, which is an organization that was that's in place to help graduating seniors be able to understand what the financial demands are for college, and if they're interested, they can receive some scholarship and grants through I Know I Can. And I Know I Can also support students by maybe getting extra scholarships from the school that they're interested in getting into, and teaching you the process of receiving more money to be able to go to school.
And also helping you with the application of the process and covering the fee for a certain amount of schools that you wanted to send to.
Right.
So I did everything, and I was assuming that the fee was going to get covered and everything. So I only applied for Ohio State at that time.
Right.
So I was like, just waiting and stuff. And then I checked, and it never got sent.
And it never got sent.
The transcript never got sent. And that was early admissions.
Okay.
Where I wanted to send it.
Right.
Because one of our teachers, Miss Mulvihill, was really on us about
making sure we were
sending it early.
Meet the deadlines.
Yeah, basically sending it early because it would increase our chances of getting into these schools.
Right.
So I didn't realize that it wasn't sent. So it was already basically the late admissions,
Right.
and I paid for it myself, and I sent it,
Mm-hmm.
but it was basically too late.
Right.
Uh,
So probably nobody looked at it.
no, they looked at
they
it,
looked at it.
and I got the letter, which I really wished I kept,
Mm-hmm.
because I got denied basically.
Right.
But I think the main issue was because I thought the guy was gonna cover it, but I guess he didn't know.
Right. So you
And
got
he
denied.
never.
You got denied on a basis that you didn't meet the requirements early.
I'm not really sure, because I don't know if had I been early admissions,
Mm-hmm.
they would already put me in.
Mm-hmm.
But since I was going at it later,
Mm-hmm.
they had already gotten these students enrolled
Right.
or admitted. So I guess it was basically like a competition of only the best or the top
Right.
are able to come in at
Right.
late.
Right.
So I wasn't really like the top.
Right.
But that was the issue there. So I applied to Ohio Dominican,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't finish the process because I was basically saying I'm not gonna go
Right.
this year at all. So I graduated, everything, honors, I think,
Right. Yeah.
and
Whatever that.
I basically just wasted my time for 1 year. Not one whole year, but almost a year.
Mm-hmm.
I just stayed home and played video games throughout the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I
But
got
you were working. Were you
No, I
working
was
then
not
at all?
working. I wasn't doing anything. I was basically a blob. Yeah. I was just taking up space in the world, basically.
No.
Not doing anything. I sort of wanted to like pursue this career in gaming, as in professionally,
Mm-hmm.
but it never really worked out because I never got the ability to be with an actual like team and practice and stuff like that. I did, but it was a big issue because the people that were part of it were not really helping improve our ability to compete with others. So basically I was just doing it as a hobby for the whole entire day. And then I got a job at the Cheesecake Factory, and then I started saving up money, and I sort of wanted to choose a job that I didn't like because I wanted it to motivate me to come back to school.
Okay.
That's why I went into the restaurant,
Mm-hmm.
not because it was my only option
Mm-hmm.
or because I wanted to do what my family is doing.
But because if you want it to remind you every day that you should be striving to put yourself in a position to make your life better, and even put yourself in a position where if your life is that much better, then your family's life would be that much better too.
Yeah, and I mean, during that time, I wasn't really motivated to come back to school. I wanted to find a different alternative to be successful without going to school.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't, that motivation was lacking, and it had started off in high school because of how the environment was.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't really motivated to want more.
Right.
That's why I went to the restaurant, and well, it turned out I actually liked working there. So it backfired basically,
Yeah.
but not completely, because I guess a year in, or a little bit less, I talked to my parents and told them that I wanted to go back to school,
Mm-hmm.
and if they could help me out, because I wasn't going to be able to obtain these scholarships, and it's more expensive than maybe just actually it's way more expensive than what they were thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So I saved up money, and then
From working at the Cheesecake.
yeah, I was working there, and I saved up money, and then they were saving up money as well. And so I enrolled into Columbus State. They had an option for DACA, so that really helped.
And
Because-
could you explain what DACA is one more time for
Yeah.
our listeners?
DACA is basically a program that Barack Obama put in place. He basically did it unconstitutionally, which I didn't know at that time.
Mm.
But it has helped me, so I really can't complain.
Mm-hmm.
But it's basically for people who have come into the United States, and it's basically the younger group,
Mm-hmm.
and have been living here, and they get this sort of permit to study, work, and live here
Mm-hmm.
legally, basically.
Right.
But you don't have the status of being a resident or a citizen. But you do get benefits that are similar.
Similar.
Yeah, similar. Not all of it completely.
Right.
So they had that option there now because once I was in high school, they didn't have that option at all. But I was glad to see that they had that, so it made it easier to apply. I went there and I didn't take the test to get placed in certain classes.
Okay.
I just gave them my ACT scores, and then they had it all figured out. I told them I took calculus, but I don't think any of us passed that exam. So, so I never really. I told them I don't think I passed it, so I guess it won't count as credit.
Okay.
But I guess they didn't take it into account because I got placed in college algebra, and then I got placed in a history, English, and then a science class, I believe.
What kind of? Do you remember what kind of science class it was?
No, I don't.
No.
Actually, I don't think I got placed into science. I think it was history. It was a reading, writing class.
Okay.
The math class. Then there was, I forgot what other one. But it was basically full term.
Okay.
Or full credit. Full hours. Full-time student.
Full-time student hours, yeah.
Yeah, and
hours.
I was working 2 or 3 days at the cheesecake. And it was basically easy. I didn't think I was gonna. I thought I was gonna maybe struggle in certain things because I didn't really keep up with the material.
Mm-hmm.
Once I graduated, so I didn't actively sort of refresh everything that I had learned.
Mm-hmm.
But as I was going into the classes, I started remembering certain things that I had already learned.
Right.
And then I started basically
more in the
breezing
math
through.
classes than anything, or no?
Basically everything.
Okay.
I got all A's, like nothing.
Right.
I always struggle with studying, and that I still do. Which the struggle that I have is that I don't study.
Right. You just don't sit down.
Yeah, I don't sit down and read the material or go over my notes and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I basically, and I procrastinate a lot. So I always leave everything to the last minute. But I feel like I work my best.
When you're under pressure?
Yeah. For some reason, like throughout my experience, I would have homework. And then for some reason, I wouldn't have the urge to sleep at a certain point because I knew it was due the next day. For some reason, I didn't have an urge to sleep. And I would just like put music on, sit right here on my desk, and then just with the lights off and just a little like dim light, and I would just go to town on the homework.
Yeah.
So I would just flow, and then I wouldn't even realize what time it was, and I would finish it and then just turn it in.
Mm-hmm.
I remember we had a project in history class. You had to read a couple of books and make a paper, like 10 pages,
Mm-hmm.
at least, I think. And you were given a topic about a certain time period or a certain event. And you had to read books related to that topic and then make your paper. So I didn't do any of that. So
You read no books.
I read no books. I didn't search anything. Like a week before, or maybe a couple of days before, I looked up books, downloaded ebooks,
What?
download audiobooks. I put that on the fastest speed you could put it. I was just going to town listening to it, and as I was listening to it, I would basically do a rough draft of the paper. I would just make, and then I would reread it, and then reorganize everything. And I did that. So I basically kind of read like 5 or 6 books in a few days.
In a few days.
Yeah. And
Completed the assignment.
completed the entire assignment. And the professor was very picky on how he wanted the assignments to be turned in. So he wanted the title page, then he wanted a blank page, and then he wanted the assignment.
Okay.
And then I think the end is the citations and stuff like that.
So he just had a preference on the formatting layer.
Yeah.
The layer.
And so I basically got a B.
Right.
I could have gotten an A had I put the blank page on.
No way.
Yeah. I basically, so I was, the day I had to turn it in, I was still finishing it. And I printed it out real quick and I stapled it and I forgot to put a blank page
in the middle.
And yeah, after the title. And that cost me a B. Or it cost me the A. And I got a B.
Right.
And then that same class, we had an exam, midterm exam. I didn't study at all. We had vocabs. He even gave us like what vocabs are going to be considered. I didn't study any of that. And then I got it to class maybe like 10 minutes earlier. I just went over some little quick notes, looked up some vocab, and then got the test. And I basically bullshitted every answer. And I got an A.
What?
I don't know how that happened. I got an A. And then luckily, the final exam, he had to go on vacation or something. And he said, we won't have a final exam. You'll just have like a final paper that will be considered as your final exam. And that's it.
Yeah.
So I did the paper and I mean, at home, basically easy.
Yeah.
And they weren't really like hard assignments. And they weren't as so many pages. And I basically aced the entire
right.
thing.
So, I know you've asked me about certain classes that I took that I've been able to use post graduation. Where I feel like they've been able to have a certain impact, or I've been able to use some of the stuff that I learned. Are there some classes that you had taken from Columbus State? And even I think you should think about it even on the unconscious way. That maybe you read those books, but you read those books pretty fast. But I think that even unconsciously, there are certain things that you had read from the books that maybe you either remember or you could apply in a sense.
So pertaining to those books, I don't really remember anything. I actually don't remember what my topic was.
Wow.
I think it was Prohibition.
Okay.
No, I lied. It was spies.
Spies.
During the Cold War.
Spies during the Cold War.
Yeah. And basically like FBI, CIAs and stuff like that. And I don't remember anything really. As far as classes that have sort of affected me in ways I could use it, I think almost every class has affected it to sort of be, in a negative way, be sort of, I guess, comfortable with not studying. Because I would get these good grades without studying or...
You figured out a good system.
I figured out that I work best if I leave these last minute, and that I didn't really need to study because I would leave it in here. But that's bad.
Right.
I recognized that. I was self-aware that it was a bad habit to have because I was just memorizing stuff and not learning it. The psychology class that I took, I think has helped me also, just to be open-minded and stuff like that. Even considering being a psychologist at some point. And that has helped me. But the class, at some point, I got a really bad grade on the test. And I lowered my grade. But then in the following test, I got a really good grade. And so I was still in that habit of not studying. And I got an A in that class eventually. I took a religion class, which I got to learn more about religions. And it was during that time that I was sort of contemplating whether on my views on religion. And so I wanted to learn about what others' beliefs were and stuff like that. That helped me a lot.
Okay, so not I'm gonna interrupt for a little bit. So I would also say I had those experiences in school where I was putting things um, aside and doing them really late. And honestly, there were moments where I did have to read like a whole book. And maybe I guess if I was going to approach it in a way to be a little bit more efficient, get the ebooks and put them on their really fast mode. But no, there was a time where I was writing a paper and I had to read a book, and I read the entire book, which was probably like maybe 230-page book, and I read it in a day, and I've never done that before. I remember waking up early in the morning, reading a couple of chapters, and then I had class, and I come back and read a couple of chapters, and then I was able to read the entire book, and also what I realized was, and this is probably very obvious, that after I'd finished reading the book, the assignment was very clear to me, and I was able to um, understand more about the importance, or like not even the importance, but maybe I understood more into getting to a better habit of reading sooner, because I realized that there are certain things that I had read and I didn't apply because I didn't really fully comprehend what I was reading. Mainly because I was reading either too fast or I read it and didn't really pay attention to what I was reading. Um, but I think something that I learned, or a habit I was bouncing back and forth, is there were times where I would get into a habit of putting things aside for a long time and then getting to the feeling the pressure of doing them, and I would be able to do well on the assignment. But I also learned through psychology that I needed to um, I learned through psychology in the way to train, not manipulate my mind, but be able to think and plan and be intentional and be able to see the bigger point of making sure I do the reading sooner, and seeing how, and almost testing how it's going to impact the results. So I decided, instead of putting the assignment on hold, to actually do it when I needed, like do it when I needed to do it, as in like read the assignments and be on top of the assignments when I need to do it, and in a way of testing to see how well I'll be able to like learn. And I also, that was my way. I think that also revealed really well how important it is to really take the assignment seriously. Because before, like you said, I got into a habit. You got into a habit of figuring out a way to be able to do the assignment quickly and do it even really well, and then realizing that was a bad habit. I used to do that, and I was still like, the assignment would be done. I was like, "Whew, the assignment is done," but I just put all this pressure on myself when I could have just been studying regularly or reading a book regularly. You know what I mean? I learned fairly quickly through that, um, and so when I got into the habit of staying on top of my assignments, I started really enjoying more what I was reading more, mainly because I actually took the time to see what it is and comprehend it, and then be able to apply to what I was going to write about. Um, and that's when I actually started feeling more like I was a student, more like I was learning, because I was able to figure out how to get into a routine and just like consume information and spit it out. And so I was very upset at some point because I realized and I knew that I was paying so much money to go to school, and I'm not really getting the full value of school if I'm just like, um, just consuming information and spitting it out. A part of me was like, this is going to come back and bite me, like, hurt me in the face or something like that later on in
Yeah.
life, because I'm not taking the time to really understand what it is that I'm trying to accomplish through school.
Mm. Yeah, and considering like that was basically how all the years that I was in school were. And I think I mainly did it because they were just basic classes. They weren't really something that pertained to what I wanted to do. And what at that point it was computer engineering or computer science. But now I really don't even know what I want to do. But I'll find something
Mm-hmm.
eventually, and like my passion, and I'll work to it or work with it,
Mm-hmm.
and make it where I can be successful. But even, I don't know why, but I'm always self-aware of the issues that I have,
Right.
and I recognize them. But some, like, school-wise, I could never fix the issue.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why.
Okay. And
I don't. I really don't know why, because I know what I need to do right, and I know the stuff I need to do, and I say it to myself, but I don't eventually do it, or I never sit down and study. What I did realize was there was some times where I had, or certain semesters where I had a class, and then I had maybe like an hour in between. So it wasn't really convenient to drive back home
mm-hmm.
and then back to the campus.
Correct.
Which I didn't really mention. I wasn't living on a campus because they really don't have
Yeah. They don't have
like
housing.
housing for Columbus State. It's a community college. So I was just driving campus and then coming back
Mm-hmm.
the days that I had classes. But what I saw within that hour, I would sit down somewhere and I would just work on stuff that I need to work.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just put music on and stuff like that, and then do like an assignment, or not read, but maybe like write a paper
Mm-hmm.
that I needed to do. And I felt like being in that, I think if I had lived on the campus, I think I would have learned how to study
Mm-hmm.
and then do my assignments on time when they needed to be in a
Mhm.
timely fashion.
Mm-hmm.
I think coming back home and then sort of just maybe laying in bed or getting on the phone,
Yeah.
I would just waste my time
Mm-hmm.
instead of studying and stuff like that.
Right.
I think that was the issue here,
Yeah.
because I wasn't living and sort of separated from all this.
Mm-hmm. I would say yes and no, mainly because of what I've learned about human behavior through psychology. What I would, if I had known that you were going through this and would have talked to you, what I would have recommended and point out to you why it was difficult is because your room, you naturally associate your room to a comfort lifestyle. When you're in your room, you have your bed, which is fairly close by, and then you have access to all your games and your TV and everything like that. And when you're in that setting, it makes it easier for you to be able to have your mindset in a different way versus when you realize that when you're spending that hour between classes because you couldn't on campus because it wasn't convenient to come home, it wasn't like you didn't have your TV next to you, you didn't have your bed next to you. This is something that I learned through psychology. So I learned that it's not good to be pretty much studying where you sleep, or like there are studies done on studying on your bed and studying versus studying at the desk. And so even those things, like I remember now, those are certain things that I was learning in my class that I was started able to apply to the way that I was going to be a good student. And so, yeah, even for me, like even living on campus, there were times where I would go from class and go straight to my room and decide to study, and I wouldn't study. And so instead of doing that, I would just stop at the library. Or I also started recognizing, and this is where I put a lot of patterns together. I noticed that like in some of my classes, once that class is done, there is another class maybe for the next couple of hours. So instead of leaving class and going back to my room, right after class, I would stay there and work on my assignment in that classroom. And then once I did enough assignments or accomplished enough, then I'll leave the classroom. Because I already felt the sense of like I was in the classroom studying. So I'll just stay there and be able to accomplish something productive before I leave there. And usually I try and stay until like I see that students are gathering either outside the door or starting to walk in, and they're like looking at me like, this kid's not in this class, because it's about time for that class.
Yeah.
So then that's when I kind of like start packing up and leaving. But no, for sure, it's I would say it was good for you to recognize that, because a lot of people don't know how certain settings or certain environments affect the way they behave.
I knew
Right.
all this stuff was distracting me.
Right.
I was completely aware of it, but I guess I just felt comfortable because I was still doing well in school.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't feel like I needed to change anything really.
Right.
But at the same time, I would say like it's not really wise to do that.
Right.
Because I mean, I would sit here and I would get work done at certain times. I would sit here and do math problems as well. Or if I went somewhere else, I would maybe do like math problems at some point. I don't know for what class,
Mm-hmm.
but there was a party and we had to go really. So I took my laptop and my books and I was literally at the party writing a paper. And
You went, wait, what party?
it was like I don't know what party. It's like a Mexican party.
Oh, okay.
I guess it was a birthday or something. But there was like loud music and stuff, and I just had I was literally at the party. It's like a round table. I had my book out and I had my laptop and I was just writing a paper while everyone else was dancing, eating, and stuff like that.
Having a good time.
Yeah, and I was just at the table doing my homework.
Yeah.
But there were times where I actually did like not study, but mainly do my homework.
Mm-hmm.
And studying wise, I would just look over stuff before like a test or something. That was basically all my studying.
No, I would say I got a better habit of like thoroughly reading and consuming information, mainly because I had learned. So basically, like what I'm learning here is like you know what you're supposed to do, but you just don't do it, and you recognize the things that are getting in your way of doing it, but you still end up finding yourself getting into those bad habits again. And that's something that I think that's something that a lot of people just have to get into a habit of understanding. That's something that you can overcome. And even more importantly, if you really start approaching and thinking in a perspective way, thinking and remembering how much money you're spending to go to school, that could maybe give you a better attitude towards understanding that, like, because I'm spending so much money, it's not wise for me to be able to just waste that money because I'm not putting in enough effort. And that's how I started thinking about some of the how to approach making sure I actually became a better student. And part of it also is just like I really just said to myself that I talk too much about certain things that I know I need to do like verbally. And so instead of doing that, I would just be like, in my head, I would just be like, okay, you know what you need to do, start doing it, versus saying that, all right, I'm gonna wake up and do these assignments. And I'll just like get up, not say much about it verbally, just write it down, and then keep it in the back of my mind. And then when it's time to do it, I just do it, and I don't really talk about. I try not to talk and get into a habit of like start doing it and I'm like, okay, well, I still have time, so I'll do it later. I just start doing it and try and stay in the moment and doing it. And I actually realized, obviously, that the stuff I was reading was more interesting. And that made me realize more to even approach reading and understanding and learning in a different way, and like approach learning in a way that like this is something that I don't know. And I keep remembering all the time that there are so many things in the world that have been discovered and have been written about, and we don't know what they're about or what they mean. And that just like that sense of knowing that like there's so many things that are really interesting that I could be able to learn about makes me enjoy learning things. And that's how I kind of started approaching doing a lot of my assignments, and really just avoided getting into the procrastination. And I just used things that I learned from psychology to be able to train my mind in a way to listen to myself a little bit more honestly. So when I say that I'm going to do something, I should be able to make sure that like I'm going to do that thing and rationalize why it's important to do that thing, and be able to rationalize even more why it's important to do this thing versus getting lazy and not doing it.
Yeah. Now, as we're talking, and I've realized this after I've already basically I got my associates of science, and after I finished that, I basically realized that the stuff that I was learning or was taking wasn't really interesting, and that I think had an effect of how engaged I was with wanting to learn and stuff like that. They were just basic classes, mainly the classes that I liked or enjoyed more, or like the psychology. I like that. I didn't reach. I read some of the textbook, but throughout like all the classes, I just liked listening. I don't like reading or stuff like that. I enjoyed listening to what they were talking about. So my religion class I also enjoyed because I got to learn more of the other religions and their beliefs. Art history I actually liked it. It was really interesting to learn about the techniques and symbolism of many things and what it represented for the people living at that time based on how they expressed it in the art. I took engineering class and
I remember talking
in a
to
physics
you
class as well.
While I was still in college about what you're pursuing, and I remember hearing initially the computer science and then later on hearing about engineering.
Yeah, I took a programming class. I pretty much enjoyed it. I mean, that's what I was trying to pursue as a major. So I was glad to see that I actually enjoyed it and it wasn't something that I just picked and found out that I didn't enjoy, but I actually did enjoy it.
Nice.
And as far as engineering and stuff, so the aspect that I didn't enjoy was mathematics as much. I enjoyed it in high school and I enjoyed it a little bit, but it was sort of at some point it was not clicking really much.
Right.
I wasn't comprehending when to use certain things or the idea of how to incorporate it into like an experiment, such as building or in physics where we would do lab experiments with force, work, friction and stuff like that. I would understand the concept, but I wouldn't understand how to incorporate the mathematics into it. But I enjoyed the class because of the professor, because he was really funny. But I didn't enjoy the class as a learning environment because he would just basically, he would teach you, but he had an accent. So he would just go on and on and on and on. And we didn't really understand, any of us really. But he had the homework assignments and all his tests were based on the homework assignments basically. So if you did the homework, the tests were very similar to the homework or sometimes even the same exact question.
Wow.
So in that aspect, I didn't feel like it was helpful in learning more because you were just memorizing how the homework was and then doing it on the test.
Right.
And it wasn't really learning. As you were saying, it's just consuming something and then spitting it back out.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I haven't been really thinking about school as much lately. I was thinking of going into like a coding boot camp. So it's, I think I mentioned it, I'm not sure. It's just basically like an accelerated program where you go 6 months full time, like a job, and learn just what you want to do. And I think that's what I'm going to pursue. I'm just going to save up and do that. That way I can just start working. Because I really don't want to I basically want to cut a corner. I don't want to go circle around and then maybe end up with a job.
Okay.
Because it's actually harder now once graduating to actually find a job because all these people want experience when
They
want like 10 years of experience.
They want you to have the ability to start doing the things they want you to do immediately.
Yeah, when you were just coming out of high school or college, and perhaps you have maybe like an internship, but all these like companies are wanting 5+ experience in the field, and you don't have that. So how are you going to get a job? So you have to basically start from the bottom and work your way up, basically, or maybe not have like the job that you wanted just to get experience, and then you can apply. So with this program that I want to do, as you're almost close to finishing, they help you find these jobs out there. So you're gonna get basically like a secure job almost. And if not, and if you don't find something, then they themselves, like the school, they can hire you to also like teach and stuff like that.
And you're hoping to do pursue this through Ohio State, or
no, it's just like it's a school.
It's a school
just for programming.
Okay.
It's not a university and stuff like that. It's just like
an institution dedicated to.
It wouldn't be a technical school.
Okay.
Because I know, have you seen in like the commercials of ITT Tech and stuff? I guess it would be compared to that. I don't know if it's similar or if it's classified as that, but it's just programming. So you learn these programs that are very popular, and you just learn all that from Monday through Friday, 9 to 4 or 9 to 5. And that's all you learn. You get homework as well and projects. So you're basically, what I learned in like 3 months, we would maybe cover it in like a few weeks.
Okay. So
it's all you're just learning programming.
It's just learning programming.
Yeah, you're not gonna take a art class, or you're not gonna take like a health class or something that is
solely and specifically for programming. All right.
Yeah, but that's basically where I'm at right now with this school wise, and I think as it's come to like a close with you graduating, and then a pause in mine. We've basically talked about not everything, but sort of the importance of how it has affected us in our life, with many things, jobs or a way of thinking. And I think it's a good time to stop with this episode. We're almost at 2 hours. Actually, we're past 2 hours. We weren't planning that, but I mean, once like you're in a flow of things, you can't really sort of cut it off suddenly.
Yeah, the perception of time is a little bit difficult to track in moments when we're having a conversation.
I don't know what we'll talk about on the next episode specifically, but eventually we'll think of it.
Yeah.
But hopefully everyone enjoyed talking about it and maybe compare themselves a little bit to our experiences, or have a different aspect for themselves. I don't know if you want to say anything else to close on it.
No, well, not necessarily. I think we were able to accomplish what we wanted to talk about as far as like talking about our experience going through college, and you learning that you weren't really doing all the things you needed to do to be the best student as you could be. And I talked a little bit more about my experience deciding that I'm going to start dating going into college, and then talking a little bit more about my experience deciding to deviate from my normal routine of going to class, lectures, exams, and being able to develop a new, not saying lifestyle, but a new routine where I am working on a project and I'm able to see how the project unfolds every single day. And then honestly, it kind of reminds me of teaching tennis, because I get to work with somebody every week, and every week we work on developing strokes and having them be able to swing correctly or hit the ball correctly or move correctly. Those things are very similar in the way that I was making art, in the sense that every day I'm able to see what progress I made. If there's something that I would like to change, I do have the flexibility to change. And that's not something I do a lot when I'm teaching tennis, unless it's necessary to improve the person's ability to hit the stroke correctly.
Yeah. And that's very, very good. And that's what school is about, really, to help you learn certain things about yourself in order to improve as a person.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's been it for this episode. We'll see you on the next one, and hopefully you enjoyed this one.
All right. Have a good one.
Bye.